Hey guys, Max here. In this video, I'm going to go over Rule 6 of Beyond Order, and I'm going to teach you how to not screw up your life, because I've done enough screwing up in my life. I want to help you not screw it up. So, Rule 6, Beyond Order, here we are. Is everything a zero-sum game? Is there always a victor and a loser? Is there always a win-lose situation? And why is there so much division? Well, it seems as though we've become, as a culture and as a collective, Puritans in our new religion. And our religion is tribalism. Our religion is narcissistic in the valuation of ourselves, and it's got to stop. That's why we need to totally throw it overboard. Do I know everything? Do you know everything? The answer is no and no. However, you may know something I don't know, and I may know something you don't know. So the more we share, that's a win-win. Ideology and how dogmatic we've taken it, left versus right, or whatever other distinction, whatever juxtaposition you have, one group versus the other, we've taken it way too far. This dogma has to stop. It really does lead everyone to be a big loser, because the more we stay in our bubbles, the more we don't venture out, the more our lives are completely screwed because we never learn anything. Remember, the other person you're contending with, talking with, spending life with, knows a lot of things you don't know. Humble yourself and ask a lot of questions. Unfortunately for the communists, a substantial proportion of the oppressed were incapable, unconscientious, unintelligent, power-mad, violent, resentful, and jealous, while a substantial proportion of the oppressors were educated, able, creative, intelligent, honest, and caring. So when you tyrannize the productive, who are you left with? I mean, that's a really easy answer. If you've read Atlas Shrugged, you know what I'm talking about. Once all the producers leave, life turns into a complete hell on earth. So let's not tyrannize the rich or the supposed top of the food chain. They are very essential to the whole entire ecosystem. I heard so much recently, in the US especially, democracy needs to reign. Let democracy always have the final say. And I agree, but to an extent. And here's the extent. The fact of the matter is, a democracy is not actually what we have in this nation. We actually have a representative constitutional republic, which is a good thing, because if we had a pure democracy, it would truly lead to complete tyranny. If 51% of the population wants a certain thing to be done, to happen, to not happen, the other 49% have to fall in lockstep and totally be okay with that. If the US were a pure democracy, that means every single presidential election would be decided by New York and California. And you know my opinion about California and New York. They're different, to say the least. They have because they have more population than the bottom 25 states all put together. Now think about that. 25 states, which is half the union, has been pretty much silenced if we were to have a pure democracy. There's a reason we have electors. And a republic, which is what we do have, is really simply put, we all know what it is. We elect representatives, and they go on behalf of their constituents, or behalf of the people, and hopefully, not always, they're politicians, remember, they're supposed to act on behalf of the goodwill of their people, so their state, their jurisdiction, their domicile, not their own personal interest. Which I'm saying this and kind of laughing because it's almost impossible to find a politician who actually does that and doesn't always think about, am I reelected in 2 years or 4 years, and how can I bolster my chances of being reelected? So the fact of the matter is, I love democracy, but to an extent. A pure democracy is like wolves going to dinner with the sheep and figuring out who's going to eat. If there's 2 wolves and 1 sheep, the sheep's in trouble. So it's better to have a republic, which is what we do have, thankfully. The ideologue begins by selecting a few abstractions in whose low-resolution representations hide large, undifferentiated chunks of the world. Some examples include the economy, the nation, the environment, the patriarchy, the people, the rich, the poor, the oppressed, and the oppressors. Anytime you, or I especially, anytime any of these words are thrown around, you have to be really keen and figure out what the person actually wants. Because the reality is, they're throwing these huge, low-resolution abstractions, trying to really explain a really complex issue. It's really not that easy. And anytime you hear anybody using these words specifically, they're almost always trying to divide right down the middle. Us versus them versus someone else. And that leads us to tribalism, and as we've seen in the 20th century, that does not work out good for humanity. And this is now talking about large societal issues. All such problems require careful, particularized analysis, followed by the generation of multiple potential solutions, followed by the careful assessment of those solutions to ensure that they are having their desired effect. So first and foremost, before you do any of that, get your own life together before you tackle anything that is of large societal importance. And just keep in mind, every large problem has so many different factors. It's very multivariate. Dozens of factors go into all these things. It's not just the rich or the oppressors. It's so crazy how so many have latched onto these cute words and cute phrases when in reality there's so many different factors involved. And that's a doozy to do. We have to analyze all those different factors, or we should analyze all those different factors and then come to a conclusion. Not the one thing, one factor, therefore this is the conclusion. That almost never works. And then the thing we don't ever do, which is crazy, we do these huge societal experiments like the welfare state, and we don't ever do a post-experiment assessment. Why is that the case? I don't know. The great difficulty of assessing problems in sufficient detail to understand what is causing them, followed by the equally great difficulty of generating and testing particular solutions, is sufficient to deter even the stout-hearted, let us say, from daring to tackle a true plague of mankind. Know that societal issues are completely colossal. To understand what is causing them is a huge feat in itself, but generating a solution, and then even a solution that actually works in the final analysis, that's nearly impossible. Be humble. Be humble, and whenever a government is involved, you know it may be, not maybe. Governments do things worse than individuals, period. So if a government's involved, it's probably not going to work out. All right, question of the day. What is the largest societal issue that we should be focusing on today? I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Please comment now. After breaking the world into large, undifferentiated pieces, describing the problems that characterize each division, and identifying the appropriate villains, the ism theorist then generates a small number of explanatory principles or factors, as in the rich, the oppressors, men, white people, fill in the blank of all these catch-all phrases. Next, the faux theorist spins a post hoc theory about how every phenomenon, no matter how complex, can be considered a secondary consequence of the new totalizing system. Finally, a school of thought emerges to propagate the methods of this algorithmic reduction, particularly when the thinker is hoping to attain dominance in the conceptual and the real worlds. And those who refuse to adopt the algorithm or who criticize its use are tacitly or explicitly demonized. Quote, it's because of racism that black people in the U.S. are not as wealthy as their Anglo counterparts. One thing, huge problem. If we only taxed the rich more and gave the money and resources to the poor, they'd be better off. An ideological theory explains everything, all the past, all the present, and all the future. This means that an ideologue can consider him or herself in possession of the complete truth, sometimes forbidden to the self-consistent fundamentalist. Poor people live in bad areas. They live there because they were oppressed to work a menial job by their greedy capitalist employer. And since they are not paid a living wage, they cannot leave the crime-ridden areas. Now, since the rich have become so much richer than before, the poor are now damned and their children are as well, unless we raise the minimum wage and tax the rich capitalist. Well, who's the rich capitalist? The guy who owns one restaurant? The moral of the story? Beware of intellectuals who make a monotheism out of their theories or motivation. Beware, in more technical terms, of blanket univariate, single variable, causes of diverse, complex problems. Of course, power plays a role in history, as does economics, but the same can be said of jealousy, love, hunger, sex, cooperation, revelation, anger, disgust, sadness, anxiety, religion, compassionate, disease, technology, hatred, and chance, none of which can definitively be reduced to another. If someone presents a very simple solution to a huge, colossal, complex problem, they're probably lying to you. If you guys are enjoying this content, please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment so more people can see this video and improve their life. It is much safer morally to look to yourself for the heirs of the world, and at least to the degree to which someone honest and free of willful blindness might consider. You are likely to be much more clear-minded about what is what and who is who and where blame lies once you contemplate the log in your own eye rather than the speck in your brother's. It always goes back to the individual. It always goes back to me. Look in the mirror. What have I done, or what can I do to rectify my own situation? Once you have your life put together, that's great. High five. Very good job. Now you can start tackling some more complex and bigger issues. If you don't have your life together, Do not tackle societal problems. You cannot, once you have something small conquered, then you can move on and move on and move on. But until you conquer the small things, don't go after the large things. Start small. Like God, however, ideology is dead. The bloody excesses of the 20th century killed it. We should let it go and begin to address and consider smaller, more precisely defined problems. We should conceptualize them at the scale at which we might begin to solve them, not by blaming others, but by trying to address them personally while simultaneously taking responsibility for the outcome. Take responsibility for the outcome. Doesn't matter what it is. It's your life. This is our collective world we live in. Take responsibility for your part. I'll take responsibility for my part. If each one of us take responsibility for the one part we play, I promise you, your life and all the world around you will continue to improve and improve at a very exponential route. So it starts small and then it goes hugely upward, and you're going to improve your life and those around you. And that is sweet. 100 million dead in the 20th century because of totalitarian collectivism and God being dead. Government became the God. 100 million should be enough for us to totally abandon ideology as the one thing that's going to save us. No one's going to save us. No idea is going to save us. That's only the man above who's going to save us. So let's begin focusing on localized problems, on small things that we can take a bite at, take a stab at, and see if we can improve that. Because once you can start improving your individual, then you move on to small community, and then you go larger. Then we can start talking about these worldly issues, these big issues. But until you get the really small things done, don't move on. And I always say this, the one person who I blame the most in my life is not my partner, not my mother, not my father, not any of my siblings, no one around me, not society, not the government, not the world, not God, but the person in the mirror, me. I take responsibility for everything I do. Once you start owning every decision you make, every outcome that happens, good, bad, or ugly, I promise you have so much more control in your life, and you'll be able to make things so much sweeter and so much grander than they would if you pass blame on the other. Do not pass the buck to another person. You take the buck. Take the responsibility. Straighten up your life. Find something productive and interesting to do and commit to it. When you can do all that, find a bigger problem and try to solve that if you dare. If that works too, move on to even more ambitious projects. Start with the small and go from there. It's not the other way around. Start small and then grow. Now go clean your room. I will see you guys in the next video.